is, why are you sitting at home? If all you're doing is sitting home, you're never going to find those things. There's not much I can do.
Yeah.
But I think it's then again about having the conversation. What is it that is success for you? What is it that you're wanting? And then to be able to help connect people to the resources. Look, at the end of the day, I really don't have any products to sell. I don't own land that I'm selling. I don't own buildings. I'm not leasing things. I don't have a product. All I have is information. How do I connect people with information? That's what we do. So how do I help businesses get that information? How do I help that guy sitting in his house thinking, I don't think there's opportunity here for me? All right, what does opportunity look like? What is it that you're looking for or you think you want? And then here are the resources to help you get there.
Welcome, world. Welcome, family, to another episode of the EL2A Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Gilmore Jr. To the right of me, we got Mr. Military Man, Mr. Miles McConaughey. How you feeling today, brother?
Feeling pretty good, dude.
Good. To the right of him, we got the Rocket, the highest of 7 hills, Mr. Eddie Rocker. How you feeling today, brother?
Feeling pretty good.
Good. To the right of him, we got one of the most important figures in Ocala, Florida. I'm pretty sure everyone knows who he is. We got Mr. Kevin Sheilley with us today. How you feeling today, Kevin?
Very well, sir. With that introduction, how can I not be?
Nah, I appreciate you. So one thing I want to start off. I always try to start off when we have a guest, because usually when we have guests, I have some sort of relationship with the guest, and I try to share something, experience that I remember. One of the key things I remember about you, and I want to know if you remember this moment. I went to speak at Church of Hope for the first time. I was introduced to the congregation, and at the end of me speaking, Mark said, just go to the right corner, and he told everyone out, you guys come, whoever want, you come up and you can speak, introduce yourself, and how you can help. You were one of the people that came in that line, and I'll never forget the moment. At that time, I didn't know who you were or what you did. You even said the CEP. I didn't know what that was. But I was like, okay, cool. So I took you up. Everybody that came up to me that day, I followed up. I followed up with you, which led you to tell me to come meet with you. And I came to your office. You don't know this part of the story. I was going there to meet with you, and as I was coming, we met. We had a great conversation. You gave me some helpful information. There was a young lady, when I left out, she said I had to come see who you are. Because a lot of people don't get in that office. She said a lot of people don't get in the office, so I got to know who you are. So that was a funny story. I said, man, this man must be an important guy. She told me that. So that was pretty funny, man. But definitely, again, appreciate you for
always. I remember most of that. Obviously, I don't know about the conversation. That's first time on that thing.
Yeah. But that's cool. So what you do a lot, I know we just share offline. We get into spaces where we start doing things, and we do good work. But you think everyone knows what's going on, but that's not really what happened. A lot of people don't know who we are or what are we doing. So when we say CEP, can you break down what's the CEP and what's your guys' mission?
Yeah, so CEP, that's an acronym. Mm-hmm. We are officially the Ocala Metro Chamber and Economic Partnership. It's kind of a unique name. It's different. That's why we use CEP, because it's short. But we are, people tend to know the name Chamber of Commerce. Right, those have been around since the 1400s. We are the Chamber of Commerce, the business association for the entire Ocala Metro, which is Marion County. But we're also the economic development entity. We're charged with helping to grow our economy for the benefit of everyone who lives here.
So you are not from Ocala. You're actually from Louisville, Kentucky. Growing up in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm pretty sure, did you do a lot of experience? Your career, did you do a lot of that there, or where did you travel?
In Kentucky and Tennessee. I was always in Kentucky or Tennessee until I came here 11 and a half years ago.
Okay, so I want to know. So I'm born and raised here. Mm-hmm. I love Ocala.
Yeah.
My whole family is here. I have all the reasons to love Ocala. Most people love where they're from. So anybody you ask, they think where they're from is the best place in the world. You came here and you championed the city of Ocala. So I really want to know why Ocala. Like, why did you come here, and why Ocala still now?
Absolutely. I love to tell this story. So unique for my industry, I got into this really early. September will mark 30 years that I've been doing this. Most people who get into this industry are usually in their mid to late 40s for to get there. I started at 22. So I got into it. It's what I always wanted to do. I just didn't know it had a name. I love making impact in communities. And so started in Tennessee and Kentucky, and kind of became the guy that helped communities create new organizations or to merge organizations. The last entity I led before I came here, we merged 6 different economic development groups together to represent a region of 4 counties and 16 cities. And I love getting that up and getting it started, and that's something I think I'm talented and have some skills with. But I was ready for my next challenge. I'd been there 7 years, and I was looking around trying to find the right fit. And I had a friend send me this notice, say, hey, look at this place in Florida. They're merging their chamber in economic development. I think that may be a good fit for you. I took a look at it and started going through the process. And when they brought me down to interview and I started looking at the community, I'd already looked at it on a screen, but looking in person, I was like, there's so many assets here. There's so much that can be done. There's huge potential, but sometimes it's hard to see potential when we live somewhere, right? Because we see the problems. We know the backstory. We see, well, that used to be, and it's hard sometimes to see the potential. But I wasn't from here. So I could see that potential and the opportunity, and I knew that it was huge. And that if everyone would move, if we could get the entity to play a role in getting everyone to move in the right direction, we could see great things happen here.
Man, I love how you just said that. So in the ironic thing behind what you just said, so you came in 2012, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually graduated high school in 2012 and I was leaving in 2012. So when I left this city, I said I would never come back. This is no place I ever wanted to be. I felt like Ocala did nothing but take from me. So I didn't want to be here. But for you to say what you just said, to say you've seen the opportunity, what opportunity in 2012? So obviously now, if I can see like someone comes here now, it's clear as day. You can see it. In 2012, what did you see?
I think it was several things. And that was what was so exciting is it wasn't just, not to use the term, but a one-trick pony here in the horse capital of the world. Yeah, we had this incredible equine community that no one was tapping into. From an traditional economic development standpoint, we had good basis, but there was huge opportunity to bring in more manufacturers and distribution and more employers. Downtown had incredible bones. There was something really cool that we can build on it. There was a chance to build a community and an economy different than the rest of Florida, because outside of Florida, everyone thinks it's beaches and the big mountains. Right. And otherwise, there's nothing else here. We've got a different story to tell, and I think it would really, I can see where it could resonate with people.
No. So when you say so I heard you say this before, making sure Ocala is a prosperous community. Mm-hmm. So that can mean a lot of different things to many different people, because, everybody has their own agendas and everybody. So when you say that is a broad term. What are you saying when you say making the process?
Let me go back and then I'll go forward. So the very mission of the CEP is to be the catalyst for a prosperous community. Mm-hmm. That we're going to be that spark that allows the community to be successful. But what does it mean? What does it mean to be prosperous? Part of it is our definition of economic development, to create wealth and opportunity for the people, businesses, and governments of the Ocala Metro. At the end of the day, to me, we are successful if any person who decides to live here has the opportunity to be successful. I can't guarantee them success, but I want to know that we've done all the things possible that anyone, whether they want to start a business, they want to go to work at a business, they want to raise a family, that whatever that is, that the tools and the pieces are here that they can be successful. So we look at a lot of things. We think about how does that rank with wages and incomes? How well is everyone in our community moving forward? How well are people able to find a place to live? How well are they able to afford a place to live? All those different things. And so those are all metrics that we watch very closely. We want people to earn more money. The Ocala Metro over the last 10 years, the median wage here has grown 50% faster than the nation. Now we're still behind, but we've got to go faster to catch up. That's key. We look at housing costs and housing affordability, being the most affordable metro in Florida, the best place, the fifth best place in the nation for those under 35 to buy a house. So how are we moving those things? How are we working? Because you may love your job, but if you can't afford to live here, you may love your job, but if you can't find a place to live, if you can't get to work, if you can't, that you're not going to be successful. So are we putting all the pieces together to help people find their success, whatever that might be?
Yeah. So for the person that's sitting in their home, because obviously you can say what you just said, and you're like, to you, that sounds like a good answer. But there's someone in there that's going to hear that, is going to say, he said that's not what this place is, or that's not, I don't see the opportunity. I don't see all these different things. Like how, because obviously, I guess you're not really trying to sell that person, but obviously you want to make sure everyone can see the opportunity. So what are you saying to that person that may be sitting at home and like, okay, you're saying all these things, but I don't see that for me?
Yeah. One is, why are you sitting at home? Yeah. If all you're doing is sitting home, you're never going to find those things. There's not much I can do.
Yeah.
But I think then again about having the conversation, what is it that is success for you? What is it that you're wanting? And then to be able to help connect people to the resources. Look, at the end of the day, I really don't have any products to sell. I don't own land that I'm selling. I don't own buildings. I'm not leasing things. I don't have a product. All I have is information. How do I connect people with information? That's what we do. So how do I help businesses get that information? How do I help that guy sitting in his house thinking, I don't think there's opportunity here for me? All right. What does opportunity look like? What is it that you're looking for or you think you want? And then here are the resources to help you get there.
So when you're saying that, you're for being the catalyst for economic progress for everyone, and you have your systems and your ways of compiling that information, that data, so that you can be very specific with how the CEP moves. Now, can you walk us through how you collect that data? How do you go through that process to make sure that every voice is being heard to a reasonable extent?
So there's two parts. So if we think about economics for just a minute, there's the macro, right? The bigger picture. For us, macro is going to be the Marion County, Ocala metro economy. And the micro is going to be the individual person or the individual business. From the macro level, we're constantly pulling data. There are things that we're checking and watching. We're looking at wage data. We're looking at housing data, looking at affordability data, all these things. We have a presentation online that we're constantly updating so people can pull that information. For the individual, right? So this could be great, but if to your point earlier, to yours, if I'm right here and I don't feel that success, then this doesn't matter to me. So it's trying to always be aware in talking to small groups, big groups, individuals, different things. What are the obstacles out there? So for example, we started looking in 2017, 2018, started looking at the data, and there's a lot of really good things happening here. But as we looked at that, we realized not everyone was seeing the same level of success. Not everyone was seeing the same level of prosperity. So we really started digging into those numbers. What, can we define this? Who is this? What is it? What can we do? And probably not as a surprise, if we think about the larger picture economics, we had 3 areas in our community that were significantly behind in median wage, significantly behind in household income, significantly behind in access to businesses and services. Every measure you want to track, they were behind. And it's our 3 majority minority communities of West Ocala, Silver Spring Shores, and Marion Oaks. Our mission is to be accountants for a prosperous community. It doesn't say business community or Southeast community or horse community, it's everyone, right? So how do we address, what tools do we need to put in place to help? And we did a lot of research. We kind of looked, we don't just want to come in with an answer. What is that? And in that, we found that entrepreneurship was the best key. Instead of us saying, here, we're just going to come put a business here and then that's going to solve the problem. If we can go into those communities, entrepreneurship's a skill. If we can help provide that skills, that training to the people who live in a community, they're creating jobs for themselves, they're creating wealth for their families, potentially jobs for their friends and neighbors, and increasing the access to goods and services in their community. We're helping them be more successful, helping the communities be more successful. And so we created what's called the Impact Initiative, which is completely about, the only thing it's about is bringing entrepreneurship training into those 3 targeted communities. Sherry Prince on our team leads that effort. And so she started the day of the COVID lockdown. So we had to do some other stuff for a while we figured that out and get back out. But yeah, we're trying to constantly be in each of those communities and not just provide training at our downtown office, but to go and provide that training on site. One of the things that we began to realize through that is if someone's creating a business and hey, it's moving past their house and they need to move into brick and mortar, it's difficult to find retail locations in all 3 of those communities. In the Shores in particular, I looked, the cost for a retail space in the Shores was higher than on Highway 200.
That's correct.
Think about it, supply and demand. There was very little supply. What was there, they could demand a higher rate. And no wonder none of our businesses could afford that. So we are next month opening our first business incubator in the Shores, our Impact Neighborhood Incubator. Our next goal is to get one open in West Ocala and then Marion Oaks so that we can provide, not only right now we're using, like from West Ocala, we go to Mary Sue Rich Community Center. We work at other facilities to do training. We'll use the old Howard Academy for one-on-one training, but we want to have a more permanent home. So we're getting the Shores up and going. That's next. But really using those tools like one-on-one training, which I think is the bedrock, right? Everyone wants someone to help them understand what's the direction. We bring the fast track training, which is kind of the gold standard in entrepreneurship training. It's a 10-week program. We're bringing Ice House this next year, which is kind of an entry level, kind of, if you're not ready for fast track, here's Ice House. So really focus on those pieces. So that's one piece of what we do to address. We've got other things focused specifically on healthcare. How do we grow and treat that as an economic engine? We have another person in an effort just around equine. There's a lot of opportunity in equine besides the horses themselves to grow and to create different things. And then most of all, I hate silos, right? I want all of these things to work together. So how do we take the person who's working on a horse farm, who's got a great idea for a product? How do we get them into our into our entrepreneurship training, help them learn how to turn that into a business, help them learn how to get that patented if it applies? How do we help them get contract manufacturing? How do we help them do their cash flow analysis to get that up and going so that they're now growing a business to serve that industry? So really looking how we bring those pieces together.
Yeah. So I like, so as you're speaking, I can't help but think, so when we start talking about diversity, so obviously we had a whole spike in the world where that started being a big thing. Everybody had to focus on diversity and equity and all these different things. And it reminded me of the thing to where you go on someone's website and it's like they put a person of color on there just to make sure they fill the void.
We have to have one, everything to fit.
Yeah, just to fit the thing. So when you're saying these things about the things you have, so the thing with the impact theory, whatever the name of it, or the things you have, and then so I think because I've been to one of those before, but I also been to a business after hours. Those are two separate, it just feels different. The question I have for you, so is it the same resources going into all these different pockets as far as the energy, the time that's going into these things, or is it just what I said, one of these things just to say it? So when I go speak, we can say we've done.
I'm not really good at those. Yeah. I want to have a difference. I want us as an organization to be making a difference in our community. So actually, the reality is something like Impact, it has a team member who that's all she does, completely devoted to that, plus other team members who help. It is a full funded initiative versus a business chapter hours, which is an event. Right. I believe that I believe in free enterprise system. I believe in capitalism. I believe that when people have the opportunity, they can create incredible futures for themselves and impact our communities. And it doesn't matter your race, your gender, your ethnicity. That's an opportunity for everyone. And if we help invest in people, regardless of what that opportunity is, our community is better because we'll have stronger people and stronger families and a stronger community. Yeah,
it's a team. Oh, go ahead.
That how you ended off is big about investing in people. Yeah. Because to some of your points earlier, there have been people that they haven't really received the same share of opportunities to take in those investments. But while I have you here, is there anything that you can say about the food deserts, especially the one in West Ocala, because that's vital to investing in a community to really bolster the independence of that community?
Yeah, and it's interesting, and it's a hard question to solve, hard problem to solve, because it's expensive. We're working through some of our models on what we want in an incubator. We have a completely different model. So at our main campus downtown, we have the Power Plant Business Incubator, more of a traditional incubator. The Shores Incubator is a little different. It's got more of a retail flair. We have a model of what we want to do in West Ocala, which is completely unique. There's nothing else like it. It's an incubator village. And there's a piece of that we have a partner, if we can get phase one done, that wants to come in that would help with the food desert piece, right? But how do we help the entrepreneur address the food desert issue? So how do we create those opportunities, whether that's through some type of restaurant, whether some type of cooperative, whether it's a traditional grocery or supermarket? You mentioned earlier to me, you had Congressman Bethea on, our Councilman Bethea. My goodness, I just gave him a promotion. I'm very excited to hear that. Very excited to hear that. Councilman Bethea. And I know that's a huge issue for him, and he and I have talked about a couple of opportunities. We're working with developers to try to find a way to make that work there. And the question becomes, it's not just what is, and with very few exceptions, Publix being the one exception, most of those retailers don't own their own real estate. So you got to get someone where it makes sense to build the real estate, financial sense. And then you've got to find a retailer who wants to fill that real estate. And so you're trying to work two pieces simultaneously. But I think there's continuing to be discussions, right? And that's the first thing, right? If you don't have the awareness, then you can't begin to address the problem. Right. So just, I think, trying to look at how we do that. For our part, for the mostly, we're looking at how do we help the small business be able to address some of those things. But I think to really address that in West Ocala, it's going to take a big business approach.
And so everybody has agendas. So when it comes to, I guess yourself, I'm more so wondering, like, because I can only imagine the weight that's on your shoulder. Because everybody thinks you're supposed to have the answers to every question. So food.
It's amazing the things people think I have the ability to do. And I have a magic wand.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So, but I do want to know, so with all these things that you are supposed to be out here tackling that people think you should be tackling, what are your main focuses? So like Kevin Sheilley, when you wake up, like what are those things you're like, this is what needs to get done for this city?
Yeah. So I guess there's two ways to answer this. One is I lead an organization. I'm a CEO. My number one responsibility is to lead that organization and to make sure that the 33 people who work for me are out implementing the mission, to be that catalyst, whatever their lane is in that piece of it. So, are we as a team moving? Are we doing what we say we're going to do? We do. We have a 5-year strategic plan that we follow very, very closely. We implement. Our goal is to implement all those things in that plan. We create 1-year plans for each of our core areas that says, here's what we're going to do this year, and that's going to help us towards that 5-year plan. So how are we moving on these things? My big focus becomes, are we generating the revenue we need? We're overwhelmingly privately funded. So are we generating the revenue we need to go implement these plans to have this impact? Are we being good stewards of the funds that we have? Are we building those connections and awareness so people know that we're working on this or know that we're a resource to do that? I think the other piece where I spend a lot of my time is, again, I believe in the power of free enterprise system of entrepreneurship. Oftentimes we want to forget, just like we know no matter how much we want to think it, if I'm going to jump up, I'm going to come back down because of the law of gravity. Well, the law of supply and demand continues to exist. The other laws of economics exist, whether we like it or not. So, for example, one of the things I'm constantly talking to people about is, and there are people who complain we've got too much construction, we're adding too many houses, too many apartments, whatever. The only way to address affordability is to build. You cannot address supply and demand without addressing supply. How do we make things more affordable? We add to the supply. And we've already seen that. We see that happening here. There's an idea out there that we can not build, but somehow things are going to get more affordable. Well, it doesn't work that way. I mean, you can wish it all you want. That's not it. And so it's really about being able to tell the story to the public, to policymakers, to business leaders about why these things are important and why we have to stay on track. Even sometimes leaders have to make difficult decisions that often aren't popular, but why that's an important thing to do.
And even on the topic of leadership, what is your biggest, I guess, struggle when it comes to you as being a leader? Like you say, you 33 employees. And so what are one of the things, I guess, the struggle that you deal with from day to day?
Gosh. I feel that my job as a leader, and in particular, my job as a leader of faith, is to care about each one of the people who are under my charge. I feel a responsibility for them. It can be very difficult to balance being worried about you as a person, but also making sure that you as an employee are doing what you need to do. I think my biggest challenge is making sure that we're keeping both of those pieces, that I'm able to demonstrate the light and salt that I'm called to be, at the same time, the responsibility and the accountability for which I have. I think that's my greatest struggle as a leader.
So from 2012, so because I would say shock is what's coming to my mind, but not shock. But where the city is at today, I can't be more happy. So being someone that's literally my whole life, I've been in Ocala. My family's here, and everything I know is Ocala. So to see, when I drive through the city today, obviously I'm not anyone that owns a horse, so that doesn't make me mad. I don't get upset about those type of things. And so I like the direction that we're going in. I've even heard people to say, man, for how long we're going to be like a Fort Lauderdale and things like that. But things like that excite me. I like the concept or the mindset of that growth. So thinking back from 2012 to now, I want to know, so what has been some of your biggest accomplishments over that year, that amount of time?
There's some great numbers out there. Our organization over the last 11 and a half years, we've directly impacted the announcement of 12,000 new jobs in our community. That's resulted in $2.2 billion in investment. Those are important. It's that wage number. Hey, we're moving wages forward. I don't think anyone should have a wage penalty because they choose to call Ocala home. So how do we overcome that? How do we address that? Part of that is creating higher wage jobs. Part of that's making sure people have the skills to fill higher wage jobs, to earn higher wages, but working both of those hand in hand. I'm incredibly proud of what we've done on the sales tax. The CEP and the business community led the effort, got the county commission to put that on the ballot in 2015 for the go into effect in 2016. Everyone told us it was never passed. People in Ocala would never be for that. We believe differently. We believe if you tell people the facts and you show them that they'll buy into that, and they did. They bought into it again in 20. That's been huge. That's made a huge difference. There's so many things our community could never afford to do the things we're doing if it wasn't for that sales tax. Being able to partner with our schools, with the 1 mil, and then we're doing so much with career and technical education. The appointed superintendent, all those things to help us continue to move forward. I think those are things that, while not traditional economic development in any way, shape, or form, if we don't have those things, we can't bring those other jobs, those other opportunities.
And is it accurate that the impact fees now go to the school board?
So the school board, yeah. So the city's always had impact fees that help fund water and sewer. The county has impact fees that came back in 2016 for transportation. The school board, starting July 1, will have impact fees for school construction. I worked very hard to get both the transportation impact fees and the school impact fees reinstated. But here's the other side. You want to talk about a challenge as a leader? I am adamantly opposed to impact fees. They're terrible economic policy. Because what they're saying is, I want you to invest, and now you're going to pay a fee for the privilege of investing in a community. How they are used. They make homes in particular more expensive, not more valuable, just more expensive. They're incredibly limited by the legislature and the courts on how those funds can be used. They're not a good tool. Everyone likes it because at the end of the day, I want this stuff, but I don't want to pay for it. I want you to pay for it, or you to pay for it, or you to pay for it. Well, there's a term for that, and that's called children. Adults understand we all have to pay a part, right? And so we have impact fees, and they're a piece, but the sales tax is so much more important. The sales tax will generate 1 year what 10 years of impact fees would generate without the negative consequences.
Even spearing it over to education, and so obviously we're in the education space with mentorship of what we do. So education is very important to us. So usually when something important to you, you like people that like what you like.
Right.
So one gentleman that caught my ear is Mark Wilson, the CEO of Florida Chamber. So I'm part of Leadership Florida, and we're up in Tallahassee. He came down to speak to the group. He started sharing about how his interest is in early learning, early education. And since then, I heard him then, and he really impacted me. And then since then I started really following him. And everywhere he goes, he really hits home on it. So he really cares about this. And so I did write down some statistics, and I want to kind of read them. So, and this is for the state of Florida and not just Ocala, but 49% of Florida's kindergarten students are ready for kindergarten. So 49% of Florida's kindergarten students are ready for kindergarten. That's
51% are not.
Right. So we got 50% that are on or above third grade reading levels. 50%. And this is across the state, so that means 50% are not. So those numbers, when you hear that, anybody would screech when they hear something like that. So when you hear something, and obviously and I mentioned Mark Wilson, he's over Florida, and here in Ocala, I'm pretty sure our statistics are similar. We're in and out of schools daily. We're actually seeing these things, but I don't have the exact. As you all, when it comes to the CEP, when you hear those numbers as the leader over there, what are you all doing to impact these?
Thank you. And that's key, because one of the challenges, often what people want, is an immediate fix, right? There's going to be a magic wand and something can be fixed quickly. Fixing challenges in education is long-term. I so appreciate Mark because he's consistent. As you said, everywhere Mark goes, you're going to hear the same thing because that's key, that he stays on message and on point. I think what I love, and is a reason, one of the things that we've supported with the 1 mil that we're being able to do is the new preschool program through the school system. So that what we saw was the largest increase in the state in the increase in children who are ready for kindergarten. The children who went through that program, it significantly increased. And so we know as we continue that we're going to have a huge chance, because you're never going to get to third grade reading level if you're behind when you start kindergarten. So if we catch this up, that allows us to start addressing this. We often want to start here or here. We got to start all the way back here and start catching up. So knowing that we're making those steps in between, and I think this is a great challenge, and I think it's a role you all play, is what do we do for those kids who are already in the system, who are already behind for whatever reason? How do we make sure they're able, as best we can, to help them to get caught up, to help them be as successful as they can be?
Yeah. And even when I think about the business community, we actually had a conversation like this. I think that was when EJ was here. And we were having a conversation and it got to this. We started talking about the business community and when it comes to education. So at the end of the day, every business should be worried about education. At the end of the day, that's your next employee. Right? You should be thinking it in that way. So what if every business adopted a school and the resources that they need, they went and got that school the resources, or so just trying to think about ways of how we impact these things.
And actually, we do that.
Okay.
We have our school business partner program. It's actually the Schools Foundation runs that. We partner with them for the last. Now I think we're getting ready to go on the 3rd year in a row that every school for the first time in Marion County has at least one business partner who worked with them. And look, it's all things. Some of them are much more engaged than others, but there's at least one, right, with each school. I think it's even more than not just this is my future employee, but as a place that's fast growing, as businesses who are trying to hire, our ability to attract employees is tied to, well, I've got a family. What are the schools like? My ability to attract the talented employees I want is in large part dependent on our schools, not because of what they're producing, but for who will want to go there. And so that's really, really key for that business. It's not just the future, but it's today. Really to have that.
So, I was gonna say, so with that being said, with the attractiveness to other parties to want to come into Ocala, which is going to be the school system, the grades of, but also the overall safety of the city. So I know this is kind of overlapping lines here, but what's the CEP stands, or what areas are there impacting for positive ends for some of these rougher subdivisions or even or communities?
So I think for our viewpoint, it's generally one of the things we know is that the more the better the employment rate in a community, the lower the crime.
Right.
So there's a direct correlation, right? Because oftentimes crime ties to people not having something to do. If they have a job, if they have a good job, that addresses that in large part. The one caveat that we've seen over the last, 15 years is related in particular to opioids, where someone's working, they develop an addiction, and then they do some for a while, but it leads to other issues. I think one of the things that we look at and talk about is in relation to what our crime rate is. The Ocala Metro is one of the 10 safest metros in the United States. There are 392 metros. 3 years in a row, we've been one of the 10 safest according to the FBI. From a macro level, that's fantastic, unless you're the person to whom a crime has occurred, and then it doesn't matter, right? And so I think it's about twofold. Are we growing an economy so that that's not an option, so people don't feel like that's a need? And two, are we investing in our law enforcement to, one, try to prevent and then try to limit that as much as we can? So I think for us, growing jobs, the other part of that sales tax is being able to invest in with our first responders, including law enforcement.
That's a baby thing. What is the relationship with OPD and the CEP?
Yeah.
Because when you said that, it struck that most crimes are about money, and even especially when you get the younger kids. So, have you all ever tried to discuss a program that, I guess, that help kids make money, or just different things when you're seeing those things?
Yeah. So I don't know that we've discussed that with OPD. I mean, we have a great relationship with OPD, great relationship with the Sheriff's Office. We're in Bellevue, we have a great relationship with Bellevue PD. Because we're interacting together a lot, talking a lot. But I think with our schools, right? I mean, it's how do we encourage programs that talk about business, right? How do we encourage kids to recognize that the free enterprise system is a good thing in entrepreneurship? We have an entrepreneurship academy, one of the career academies at Forest High School is the entrepreneurship academy. We really were a proponent behind getting that started, working with our middle schools forward and getting kids exposed to entrepreneurship. We do that through our Youth Career Expo and some other items, bringing business people to schools. We often serve as a resource to help schools connect with business people, to have them into the classroom. We host a youth business playing competition. We just did it for the 10th year in a row. We give over $10,000 in prizes. What I love is for the last 2 years, half of our finalists are teens who have ongoing businesses. The team that won this year, they've already generated $100,000 in revenue.
Wow.
And they're still in high school. I mean, that's phenomenal. So I think there's some great stories in our community. It's not going to your question, but I think there's some great stuff out there. It's just, again, telling the story, letting people know, man, there's some really good things going on.
Yeah. And that, to your point, because I was going to say, why would anyone know about it? Because I never heard about that too. You just said it. So those are stories that I think everyone has to know. And that's another thing. So there are a lot of great things that come, even for myself. So before I left, I never heard of CEP. I never wanted to be here or be in Ocala. Then coming back, obviously, I went away, got my education, came back. So I was on a different mindset. But when I got back, I started coming to, I think one of my first events was after hours, and I started seeing how the community was moving. And then I said, okay, this is a different place than what I've seen. So to your point, I think that our marketing or that awareness is one of the key pieces to make sure people know.
And look, the challenge today, we talk all the time in my industry, just sitting around the table. You all know this. So I'm a little older. I can remember every day you get the newspaper, you read, and then you find out, or you turn on the local news and find out. And there are people who still get the paper, though not very many. There are people who still turn on the local news, but not very many.
Yeah.
How do you tell the story? For us, it's you're really trying to push it out through video casts that we do, social media. But there's also other websites that just like to stir. I mean, right? They have a business model that says, if I get people to click, I make money. So I'll say whatever, and people will click. And it's easy to sell bad news much better than good news, or to make something bad news so people click on it and they want to, and then everybody wants to comment on it. And often they haven't read anything that's there, but they've got a comment. And so I think it makes it even more important. As much as we can, as broad as we can, we tell the good stories, because I think people want to know it. It's just a lot easier to find a negative.
Yeah. I always say, so negativity is louder. It's louder than positivity. I say as well. So there's definitely more positivity in the world than negativity. Negativity is just louder, and you're going to make sure you see it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But I do, to change the gears a little bit, I want to get your take on mentorship. Yeah. What do you think about mentorship, and what has mentorship played in your growth and your role?
Yeah. I don't know that you can find a leader. I don't know that you can find even a moderately successful person in no matter what they're doing in business and education and healthcare, in life, that they've not had a mentor. I think it goes back to I think it's a basic craving of every person to have someone help them along the way, to be able to help show them some direction. Whether that's a formalized mentorship program or just a relationship that develops over time, we all value those. And because I think it becomes a way in adulthood to have a sounding board, to have someone who can see things differently than you see them, who can be honest with you and go, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think you're seeing this right. Or, you know what, you need to look. And so I think it's huge. I think for me, I'm in a unique position. I've been in this industry, I told you, nearly 30 years. Almost 28 of those years, I've been running organizations. So I started running my first organization when I was 24. So I've been answering to a board of directors. And so my boss is usually the chairman of the board. So I get a new boss every year, every 2 years. But I've had some incredible chairs who've really been phenomenal mentors for me. Often I was the young kid and they were the established business person. And so it was really beneficial. I think for the third time in the last 4 years, I now have a chair that's younger than me. So it's a little different, a little unique. But being able to have those relationships with people who can see things, bring their experience and their leadership to the table. And I've had, in particular, the second community I led an organization. I had the same chair the entire time I was there. Phenomenal leader. And just being able to watch how he handled people, how he handled difficult situations, how he helped me learn how to do that, was really, really key to who I am today and how I lead an organization.
So obviously the city, you have Ocala, and Ocala has different pockets. You got your downtown, you got your airport out there, you got Silver Springs, you got all different pieces. I actually want to know, I guess, what's your favorite part wouldn't be the right answer to answer, but which part are you focused?
Let me answer. Well, that's a different question.
Okay.
So two different things. I live in the historic district. My office is downtown. I love downtown and historic district. I mean, it's great. It is a phenomenal place to live. Home, our neighborhood, all the things downtown, love it. Where's my focus? My focus is generally really on more of the periphery. From an economic development standpoint, how do we have impact there? It's interesting. You know, we talk about, and I mentioned earlier, we got to build, we have to do these things, but I'm also a huge proponent of the urban growth boundary. We want all the development to occur within that horseshoe, ironic, shaped area. So that we're huge. We don't need to have development happening in the farmland preservation area or the springs or some of these others. But that means 89% of this county is no development. And that means we have the 11% that has to be developed. So how do we make sure that that's happening in that 11%? So my focus is on the horseshoe.
How much out of that available urbanization space, how much is left of that?
We've not even developed half of it yet.
Okay.
And then as you think, part of what's happening now is we're having more infill and more denser development. So that really extends the life of that urban growth boundary. So I was going to say, as much as someone that I was like, oh, we're becoming the next, it's usually Orlando. Fort Lauderdale's not one I hear. You're shooting Orlando. No. I mean, we're going to have 100 years from now, 89% of this county is still going to be horse farms and springs and national forests. All of those things that we can enjoy, but it is going to be a much more urbanized, dense center.
Yeah. So I actually love downtown as well. So before I left, so high school, we never went downtown. Like I guess there was no reason to go to. I was telling people I was running cut different when I went to like my first light up Ocala. Like we didn't really go to things like, down there. So to see what's going on and see, the livelihood, to go downtown on a Tuesday evening, see some foot traffic. I love that. So can you give us some, like what else is expected to come downtown, and what can we be looking for in the 3 to 5 or whatever?
So I would tell you, as much as downtown has changed in the last, let's say 5 years, it's nothing compared to what's going to happen in the next 3 years. It's kind of become public knowledge now. There's a new Marriott AC that's going to be built downtown. They're going to start into September 1st of October. The old Sovereign Hotel is being renovated into a boutique Hilton under their Tapestry brand. Infinite L Works new location is going to open up next month. You've got the Forge under construction. You've got multiple residential developments that are in the works. The new parking garage, all this. There is so much that's going to be happening downtown that I would think if you were to, go overseas for 3 years, go away for 3 years, come back and be like, where am I? What? I mean, it's super exciting. And I think it all complements each other really, really well. Downtown's going to be, it is great. It's getting ready to be amazing.
Love to hear it. So what is your greatest hope for the city of Ocala?
When I came in 2012, there's lots of ways I could describe Ocala. From a feel standpoint, the feeling, though, really could boil down to is hopeless. He was in the midst, coming towards the end of 7 years of double-digit unemployment. Things were bad. Things were not good. There was no sense that things could happen here. My hope is that the enthusiasm and excitement that we felt over the last several years that, hey, it is possible here, things can happen here, we do, continues. Because if that continues, and there's all kinds of other things, not just, new hotels or new restaurants or whatever, but really transforming the community, that anyone can be successful here. That hope begins to permeate, and then phenomenal things will happen here.
I love it. So, man, had a great podcast. Probably y'all got anything else for Kevin?
You've been off the fly. I keep waiting.
So when it comes to economics, this brother right here, he's definitely on it. But just to hear, what, as far as the CP, so I'm Jamie's brother.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm his big brother. And just like you said, we weren't, when we were younger, the city, what the city is today, it wasn't what it was years ago. But to see and hear about the CP, and to see and hear or just be a part of the growth of the community is big. So I'm actually just sitting back, getting more information of learning about the CP. A question that I would have for us is, how could we help put the information out for Cut Different, or from Cut Different's platform to the youth, because we're big on exposure?
Yeah, I think just telling the story. I think for everyone, there's opportunity, and understanding that there are tools and resources available, that no matter what you want to do, wherever you're trying to accomplish, there's a resource here. You don't have to go someplace else. It doesn't mean you have to go to Orlando or Miami or Tampa or somewhere. We've got it here. And that's where we really want to continue to grow. Part of my definition, people ask me, when are we successful? When do we know we're successful? When you never have to leave this community to get the things you want and need. When what you want and need is available here, then we're truly successful. Now, as you said, I'm 100%, moms and dads all the time, I don't want my child to leave here. I want them to stay. And I tell them, every 18-year-old, wherever you are, is better someplace else. I have good friends who work in Nashville, one of the hottest markets in the country, and their number one concern, every 18-year-old wants to leave. Well, it's more fun someplace. It'd be better. There's nothing to do in Nashville. Because it's always greener someplace else. So I'm all for them going away. I just want them to come back when they're 25 or 26, when they've gotten a little seasoning. Now they have something to bring, and they recognize, man, there really is opportunity here. There are things that we can do, and I can have an impact. But yeah, I'm just telling the story, knowing that there are good things happening.
Absolutely.
And this just came to my mind. What's the most valuable piece of advice you ever got, through your career? What's the most valuable piece?
There's a phrase, and I use it all the time. And I think about it. Don't sacrifice the permanent on the altar of the immediate. And often, I have a quick wit. I can slice and dice you really fast. But I've learned, number one, that's not good or helpful. But also, it may make me feel good at the moment, but it won't help me in the long term. I might beat that person today, but I'm not going to win long term. I'm not going to have that impact. So being able to think about situations, about what is the long term, what do I want to see happen long term, being able to control how I respond, and also how I act and how I position our organization or myself for that long term benefit.
Love it. All right, family. So great episode. Stop what you're doing right now. We need you to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. So we had a great podcast right now. I know you heard all these gems Kevin dropped. We need you to stop and like, subscribe, comment. You can go to the CEP page and on their YouTube channel and find out a lot more information about them as well. All right. So before we end, what I'm going to do, y'all good? Anything last words y'all want to say before we good? You good?
I just wanted to ask one last question. Because you hinted at it a little bit, but we didn't go into it throughout this time. The spirituality part, which is extremely important. We can focus on different aspects of the human experience, but we don't address the spiritual side of things. That would be a disservice. So with that being said, with being a man of your stature and just connections and everything else like that, what helps keep you centered? And the reason why I ask that question is because here in America, it's not exclusive to America, but business leaders have grafted and grown into thought leaders of our society, which when you're looking at it and you really start dissecting, it can be a little bit of a conflict of interest, because if you're molding the minds of people and you also benefit off of those people, so how do you keep yourself centered to where it's mutually beneficial for you as a business leader to bring in profits and revenue, but also keep the hearts and the needs of the people paramount at front and center.
So you can only have one focus, right? There can only be one number one thing. I am called to be light and salt in the world. And I believe my calling, some people are called to be pastors or teachers, or my calling is to be an economic development professional. That's how I do that. But at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's easy, right? Because when you show up in the newspaper or you're online or you're out somewhere and people know who you are, it's easy to think, oh, look how great I am. I'm just the vehicle by which God is choosing to use at this point in time. And I am grateful that he chooses to use me. But at the end of the day, it's not about me, right? It's about how I can be used. And so I think the recognition that because I'm out and about, people know who I am, and when you're 6'6", you really stand out in the crowd and everyone sees, right? That how I act, how I respond, what I say, what I do is my testimony. And so to always be cognizant. That doesn't mean, obviously, I've dropped the ball. I'm thankful for grace and mercy, but then I also try to make sure, am I living that way, and am I also showing that grace and mercy?
Appreciate it.
Great answer, man. Glad to have you. One thing I want to do as we close up, Kevin, I want to have you look in that camera. Tell people how they can find you if you want, or CEP, or what you guys got, just all the information they need about what you have.
Absolutely. Probably the easiest thing to do is to go to our website, OcalaCEP.com. You can find an events calendar. You can find our team, find everyone who works on our team and how to connect with them. Follow us on Facebook at Ocala CEP or on Instagram. Find out all the things that are going on. And anytime, if you want to connect directly with me, shoot me an email. That's the best way to do it, and I'd be happy to meet with you.
Perfect. One last thing. You got to leave them with a word of advice. One word of advice should just leave with the people that's watching this to help them throughout their life. What do you got for them?
I'm going to go back to what I said a moment ago when you asked me, don't sacrifice the permanent on the ultra immediate. Whenever that is, there are no shortcuts. Don't take the short way, focus on the long term. And that's really where we have impact, both for ourselves, for our community, for our country.
Love it. All right, family. We'll see y'all next time.